Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Legion Academy. Hey Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
All right, man. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We got a lot of cool news from FFG. We had a nice tournament that you did very well in. We're gonna recap that.
Yep.
Tons of cool stuff to show off as well. So why don't we start by seeing how you're doing? How's everything going on your end tonight?
Doing pretty good. We had the school announcement here for the back to work plan, and so um, quite a few people in uproars about that, not to their liking, and so all the things that come with that, being a school administrator, there's certainly a lot of anxiety around that. So I've just been managing some of that today, and I got a couple weeks to prepare for that. So luckily, that's on the work related side. Today we're going to talk about fun things. So I won't dwell on that too much and take the stress off. Alpaz in chat here was asking if we're going to talk about Gen Con. We are in fact going to
Mhm.
talk about that. I promptly reminded I'm going to boot him out of chat though, so he's going to miss it. But we'll catch you up later, Al. So thanks for. He probably told me he is the chat, so I would like
He
everyone.
is.
I would like everyone else in chat to prove him wrong, and please feel free to drown out Alpaz, friend of the show tonight. So,
I'm pretty
uh,
happy because so I haven't played an in-person game of Legion since March 14th. I've only been playing TTS when I get the chance, and I've got two games confirmed scheduled this week, and possibly a third one, a physical in-person game of Legion. So finally getting back to the tables this week. Social distancing and taking proper precautions, of course, but I'm
right,
excited to finally feel like some semblance of normal again.
right.
So
So
that's
I
that's
guess
cool.
yeah, I guess we can talk about my Friday Night Fight game too when we talk about the list later on, because I guess I did play a physical in person game, but via the internet. So here, I guess for you guys. So um, nice. Jeff Rodriguez is the Senate, so I like it. Chat's a little sassy already, but that's perfectly to my liking. So
Good.
we have a
We got some
go
cool
ahead.
things to show off. I don't want to get
Yep.
too ahead of anyone, but we got a lot of cool things we're going to show you real quick. So I just want to say this to everyone: if you've ordered silhouettes and you still haven't gotten them, I just got them all last night.
Yep.
So this is the plan. This week, got to airbrush them to the colors that you guys chose, and I'll have them sent out later in the week. So that's
Nice.
definitely the plan. I know some people are waiting for them. There's quite a lot here, so hyped on that. Just some cool prototypes to show off. Just some various colors. If you go on the legionacademy.net website, you can still order these. They're still available. There's a lot of different color and logo choices. So that's
Right.
cool. We also have an update for the patrons out there. We're going to be doing deployment zone markers. So I've got several prototypes here, but I think we're going to end up going with a black acrylic after seeing a lot of these. But I really like the design. It almost looks like BB-8's armor. It's kind of like a droid plated armor on it. It looks really good. And then what else did I have here? Um, we've got a
Objective
coupon
markers.
code. Yeah, we've got objective marker prototypes as well. We'll show those off on the Patreon. Those will be for next month. And then we've got some sponsors and stuff to talk about. So why don't you
Yeah.
take that, Sean?
Sure. So Ken Horton in chat, perfect timing with the question he was saying. What STL files? So right at the bottom here, we got a code here offered to us for the next. Well, it's going to run out probably just at the tail end of this month, I think. So it's Legion Academy, all one word, 15% off STL files, all the STL files from Imperial Terrain. So big shout out to Dave for providing us with that code. So we've been advertising it both on Friday Night Fights as well as here. It's just on STL files. I say just, I just mean it doesn't work on physical prints. But for all you guys with printers out there, I mean, if you can take 15% off the top of an order you're going to make anyway, why not do
Mm-hmm.
it? Just punch in Legion Academy, helps Dave out a lot, helps you out as well. So you get a little bit of a discount. So just go punch that in, and we're just doing our service. And Dave's helping us out a lot by providing us with that code. So that's there. Speaking of sponsors, we do want to shout out to just for our Friday night fights. If you guys have been checking those out, Deep Cut Studios has provided us with a few mats, and we've been featuring those. So we also want to recognize them. So go check that out. It's deepcutstudio.com. I'll get a link in the liner notes so you guys can just click on that and go check that out. So Perfect. There's Ken Horton say he's going to order some STL files this week. Well, now you got
Nice.
15% off. So you're welcome. Make sure you tell Dave big thank you. So yeah, so Friday Night Fights, like I said, just check us out on Friday. Last week I actually played. This week I'm not sure who's playing, but should have a game for us at some point. I think we might start seeing some repeat performances, but the repeats are usually built on rivalry, so they're usually a little bit more of a spicy game, and I like that a lot. Then the other two things we're going to cover off today is obviously going to be the Gen Con tournament. We're going to talk about that, and then obviously the Gen Con announcement release. I actually had to tune into Crabbuck, so thanks for him for filming that, because I was playing during the actual Gen Con one, so not sure what you guys caught exactly, but we're going to do our best to recap the Legion stuff for you this evening. So Joe got to tune in for that, so he'll be able to chime in on the pieces that I don't exactly know. So that's
Hmm.
kind of all the topics for this evening.
Awesome. Let's
So
jump in. Let's
full
start
house,
chatting.
full house. All right, so we'll slide over here, and Joe and I can kind of set the stage. So, so I think what we're gonna do probably, Joe, is start on the Gen Con announcements, or do you want to start with the Gen Con tournament?
Let's recap the tournament because I'm hyped
Okay,
to hear about the games that I didn't get to see on stream.
sure.
So
Yeah.
so
So, yeah,
let's start from the top, right? You played basically the same list we showed off on Friday Night Fights on
right. Do you want me to
Friday.
jump to it? I actually have it here,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
can. Yeah.
Let's take a look
Okay.
at it.
Cool. All right. There it is.
Hmm.
So yeah, this same list that I had played on Friday Night Fights, pretty straightforward. I call it a vanilla list because it's just that. It's Grievous with aggressive tactics, endurance, and the Annihilator. Six B1s, one with an HQ uplink, and two AATs with high energy shells. So basically, just rinse and repeat on almost every unit. Command cards, sorry, I didn't share those with you, but it's all three Grievous and all three generics.
Yep.
Then deployments, I choose major offensive, long march, rollout, and advanced positions. Primarily, I just want that corner deployment so I can pick a table, and generally 3 out of 4 of them are pretty redundant in terms of what the positioning looks like. I go key positions, intercept, bombing run, and payload.
Hmm.
I like intercept and key positions because again, looking at the table, I can know those points. The other two have a little bit of a moving mechanic with them. However, I'm going to talk about specifically how I play bombing run most games. Ironically, I played bombing run, long march, all 3 games in the round robin. So
Yeah.
um, that
Nice.
was definitely to my choosing. I have a 15-point bid. I was blue player every single game that I played.
Yeah. So let's rewind time here
Sure.
almost a year ago, right?
Oh
So
man, it's way
let's go.
back.
Well, let's go way back because I want to talk about like kind of we've been talking about this list together, and I know there's been like multiple iterations of it and stuff. So first of all, let's say this: we saw the AAT in person for the first time at Gen Con last year, right? We were there. It was awesome. I think both of us were thinking when we saw it that we're really hyped to put this thing on the table.
Yep.
Huge imposing presence, right? So we've been theorizing the concept of tank lists for a long time together in general. And I think looking at the history here, you specifically brought up to me, I want to say it was like December or something, that you were going to find a way to play a double tank list, whether it was going to be clones or droids. And
Yes.
I think the first iterations of your like teching for this started with double saber clones, and
Yes.
the saber tank released first, right? So you were always just being like,
Yep.
dude, I'm finding ways to strafe with these bases and figure out cool things to do. You were talking
Yep.
about blocking techniques, screening techniques, displacement techniques, covering up key positions that are small so people can't touch them. You were
Yep.
like working on these concepts a long time ago. And
Yep.
then we were talking, and I was like, I don't know if Double Saber's good. It seems good, but I'm like, it gets countered by this and that, and we were going back and forth on it. And then finally, you were like, I think Double AAT is actually better. And
Yep.
so for a long time, you've been ready to play this list. As far as like proxying the base,
I've been
right?
doing it
Like,
a long time. Yeah, I've had a
yeah,
6-inch base on my table, like basically after Gen Con, and I've been theorizing like just what it looks like on the table, how it moves. Strafing's really important. I really did like the AAT, or sorry, the saber, just based on speed.
Hmm.
I really think there's some techniques that work a little bit better with the saber. However, it's really tough, and I think honestly, one of the key things in my list versus some of the other AAT lists you'll see out there is mine is 9 activations,
Yeah.
and it's really critical to have the ninth activation in there. I played it with 8. I was not as successful early on with it, but I got about 30 reps before Gen Con with the list, and now I'm up to 35 with it. So actually
Hmm.
36 because I played another one. But yeah, and I really like it. 9 activations is the sweet spot for the list for sure.
Yeah.
You have a lot of redundancy, and like there's a great line where like 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right? So like having 2, even if you lose one, you still have that imposing presence. Having one AAT that you lose everything that comes with having an AAT in your list.
Hmm. Yep.
So there's definitely some great value in having 2. So
Yeah, and
uh,
it's very clear that you are well versed in this list. Like you've been clearly playing it a really long time because I think you were even like doing stuff that was ahead of the casters. Like they were like, "Oh, put your tank here," and then you put your tank in a spot that they weren't predicting, and they were questioning it. And I'm like, he knows what he's doing. This
yeah,
weird like pincer move he's got going on here, like he's done this before. And we've
yeah.
had this conversation so many times, and that's why I wanted to say it. You know, it's like you really like this list is good, but if you put those reps in with it and really master it, it's really beastly. And we
There's
saw you like take it pretty far, you know.
there's a lot to be said for the strafe maneuver, and the one thing about strafe, and this will hold true for any heavy that can strafe, is that the positioning of where a strafe ends up or potentially can end up is really tricky to see.
Yeah.
Straightforward, but like there's a lot of times where I'll like cross my tanks and they'll like literally be side by side, and I'll have one go here, then another one will side, and then this one will move up, and then this one will reposition behind, and you could do a lot of really cool maneuvers with it, and you can open up. One of the things, obviously, with the AAT is that the arc is pretty irrelevant unless you're shooting your missiles. So you'll see me a lot of times arc forward when it's missile time, and if I move to another position that seems weird, it's because I'm opening up for a barrage shot. I really don't care where my arc is at that point.
Hmm.
You're moving 4 positions, so
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, and there was a lot of times where I was kind of thinking a turn ahead when I was watching you. I was like, okay, he's clearly going to barrage here, and then on the next turn he's going to move and like line of sight block all of his B1s. And you're not necessarily thinking about that as the opponent, right? There's like a lot of cool stuff I saw you do that I was like, yep, we've talked about this. So
right.
yeah, it was nice to see. Um, but yeah, I mean, this list comes with its weaknesses for sure. I mean,
Yep.
to me it feels like any other list where you can kind of get burned by a table because I think this list does kind of rely on B1s being hidden and safe. And
Yep.
if they're not, and we saw that in your like second round game on day 2, it's like, man, they just are like dying 2 or 3 at a time, and all of a sudden it's like, well, that kind of burns you on the late game objectives a little bit. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that. There's also like the potential for Grievous to panic, do a suppressive list or something. So it comes with weaknesses like any other list, but
Yeah.
overall, I mean, it's really good, especially if you know if you've got everything down, all the movement down. I think a lot of it is really like using the AATs in smart ways that people aren't expecting.
Yeah. I'll just talk about my round robin games kind of in general senses. I played 3 fun games, fun people. I actually played 2 Canadians out of 3 games in my round robin, which was like
Nice.
kind of I don't know how many were in there, but it just seemed like I got matched up against all of them. So that was super fun. I had, like I said, all enjoyable games. I played against Empire twice,
Hmm.
and what did I play in my other game? I'm trying to remember here. Empire twice, and then I think I played
Rebels, right? Hmm.
Rebels, and then Rebels, and then Rebels 3 times I think in the tournament, and Empire twice. So
Hmm.
um, played some against a couple Idens for sure. In my first game with the bombing run, I had a cool play, so I can kind of talk about that. I'm just trying to remember my third game to be perfectly honest. What it came down to. I'm trying to all the games kind of blurring together. But in my first game, I had a really cool play where it was no bombs scored. It was an MOV victory. But again, I play bombing run a little bit different. Like I said, I'm not really trying to press for the bombs too much with my list because I really find that my list can line back better with the bombs. And then I typically will win out on victory points if I can keep my tanks alive. Or if I even lose one tank, at that point I've usually killed 5 or 6 activations, so get my points back. But there was one cool play where my opponent had clustered all his bombs together, and he had about 5 units. And what I did is I ended up double moving Grievous, took a relentless shot to put a suppression down, and then detonated my bomb because I had last activation. Detonated my bomb right in the midst of his 6 units. Wasn't anywhere close to the deployment. Hit Grievous but did no damage. Put all the suppression on his units, and then opened up the next turn with Grievous's 1 pip. Again, moving in, swinging, shooting, and then end around shooting against all those. So he had several units with 3 to 4 suppression. I did like 14 casualties, I think, in total in that sort of melee there. So it was really devastating. It was really tough for him to come back from that. I ended up winning that one. In my second game, I actually couldn't block enough. My opponent had 11 activations in an Imperialist. But what I was able to do is I was able to inflict so many casualties. And the last of the game, he was winning 1-0 on bombs. He was going to detonate his second bomb, and I was going to detonate my first bomb. Grievous could double move into the end zone and blow up. However, that would have made it 2-1. So what I did instead was move my AAT out, detonated the bomb outside of range 1, but it was enough to hit his last 3 Death Troopers,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up killing all his models left on the table. So I ended up killing like a squad of 2 Stormtroopers, a single sniper, Iden, a unit of 1 Death Troopers, and a unit of 2 Death Troopers, all in the last turn to table him on the final bomb at the end of the
Insane.
activation to win that game. Closest game I've ever played of Legion.
Wow. The
My opponent,
tabling.
yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's been a long time since I can actually say that I've tabled somebody. Like when you table somebody, like oftentimes it's like a foregone conclusion. I have like 1 guy here, 2 guys there,
Mm.
a couple unit leaders left. But to full out table somebody to win a game, and I'm not trying to say like I decimated the guy, because that was literally my only play. If I don't, I lose. So that's how close that was. It was one of those ones where it's like models left on the table were the deciding factor, objectives aside. So he really had a 2, because I didn't even get the point for that. So it was really a 2-0 loss on the objective points, but a win because of the tabling. So absolutely fantastic game. Oh, now I'm remembering my third game. The third game I played on a table, and Joe, you were saying this was in commentary. A lot of people were saying, and again, I didn't listen to any of this, and I did start to listen to the recaps on the games, but played on I'm not even sure what the map was, but it was like kind of
I
iridescent
think it's
green.
like
Is it Christophsis? Is it Christophsis?
Christophsis. Yeah.
Yeah. And so on that table, a lot of people were complaining about the vehicles having a lot of issues moving around. And I think it's because there's so many crystals and the fact that you couldn't balance on them.
And there
Um,
was at one point I saw it came up that there was a collision issue just in general. There was
there
like a
was.
crashed ship or something. And I guess what they said is like they scaled it down physically in the mod like recently, right before the tournament. But for some reason, the data was like assuming it was the original size. So like there was just like invisible space where models couldn't go.
Okay.
So
I didn't
that's,
encounter that,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
But that was actually another game against Triple Taunt. So I actually played Triple Tauntauns twice in the tournament. Iden twice, and then the Rebel Ramble, Rabble. Sorry, sort of kind of like a Scarif type list. So good list. All the lists were good. I
Yeah.
mean, Triple Tauns. I mean, I played Triple Tauns at LVO last year, so I know exactly how they can be devastating. So, but in that game, what happened was my opponent brought the bombs and with the tauntauns. And typically, I don't pick a bombing run versus tauntauns. It's just not a good matchup.
Yeah.
However, I liked the positioning that I could get my AATs in, and there was the only two spots to get to my end zone on Long March, I could actually physically block the Tauntauns getting past me on both sides with the tanks. So
Hmm.
immediately what I did is I moved out and just blocked the lanes. And I actually landed on both of my bombs because we played Minefield. I actually played Minefield. Get this. Played Minefield two times out of three,
Okay.
Long March 3 out of 3, and Bombing Run 3 out of 3.
Wow. Well, that's the conditions and deployments you want apparently for
Yeah.
success.
And
Yeah.
uh, and I rolled 4 bombs in the tournament. All 4 I rolled were surge, so double detonations every single bomb
Ooh.
that I rolled for my opponents.
Yeah.
Mine were single detonations. And what I did is I ended up parking my tanks on top of the mines to allow myself to move past and not detonate. Repulsors don't detonate; they block line of sight. You can't see the bomb, therefore you don't detonate. So I was able to kind of skip past my bombs without really having to cause too many casualties to myself. So once I did that, I was able to get the Tauntauns to drop the bombs, and ended up 2 games this tournament because I've spoken about this before and I've told you and I've certainly rambled about it in private chats how much I dislike R2 and how much my list really struggles against R2. So, but the nice thing about practicing is I got a ton of practice against R2. So I actually ended up one-shotting R2 in one game and 2 B1 squads consecutively took out R2 in another game with back-to-back double crits. Um,
Nice.
so R2 seemingly not a problem when it got to this tournament, but I think that had more to do with the luck than the actual units. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was just able to press really hard in that game. My opponent wasn't able to get anywhere near my end zone. Again, one out on MOV there without. I did actually get 1 bomb into the end zone on that one. It was a cool move. I actually did a strafe, double strafe sideways to and the reason I did that instead of forward maneuvers is I wanted to drop the bomb on the backside of my model and block off a piece of terrain so that the models couldn't get past my tank, and I could keep it on the backside to ensure that if they were somehow able to get by me, they couldn't reach the bomb. So
Hmm.
that was cool. Just body blocked him with the tank, and then was able to detonate for the win there.
And
And
honestly,
then
I love the tank body block. Like I
yeah, yeah,
think
it's
that's
good.
such a strong use of the tank. Yeah, that
And then
area did not.
just And then just maybe just to save my voice a little bit and let you generally recap, you watch my 4th game. So just as a casual observer, why don't you kind of maybe tell people how that game went because you saw the whole thing. So
Yeah.
it'll
So I mean, I knew right off the this. You're talking about your game against Kingsley.
Kingsley, yeah, yeah,
I knew that was going to be intense because I know, like, first of all, Kingsley's a great
it's
player. We
insane.
know
Yeah,
that. We know he's
insanely
good at
good.
tauntauns. I knew he was going to be making optimal plays the whole time. And I was like, man, if he can get into your B1 safely, he might be able to just do enough to kind of wreak havoc. But and I mean, he definitely got in. But I think you were doing some really smart stuff. Like there was a time where you moved 2 activations worth of B1s into base contact with a Tauntaun just to kind of lock it in place. And it's like, well, you're denying my payload with your Tauntaun model, but I'm also still capping the payload with my 2 unit leaders, and your Tauntaun can't really get a ram off. Because really, honestly, like with sharpshooter and those 4 red dice, like half the time they were just devastating without even having to get into melee. They were just
Yep.
picking off ones. But um, Kingsley's dice in that game for his snipers were absolutely obnoxious. And I mean, we could go on and on. Like, if you watched the game, like the casters were saying it the whole time, and everyone in chat was like, dude, he's rolled 9 crits in like 11 activations of snipers or something. Like
Yep.
he was just critting your tank over and over again. So he managed to actually kill one of the AATs with just snipers. I think he
Yep.
took one rebel trooper, like naked rebel trooper pot shot at it and still got a crit and a wound, which
Yeah,
was
he
dumb.
did. Yeah,
But
he
like,
did 1 wound to one and 9 to the other. 8 of them, which were snipers. One on the other one was a sniper, and then
he would
one
just
rebel
aim
trooper.
shoot his snipers and get a crit like every single time. It was such a statistical anomaly. If that
Yep.
didn't happen, it would the game would have been a blowout. I think
Yeah, I mean, I
that
did lose it
happened
in
kept it
turn
close.
five, so
Right.
I did make it to turn 5 with that, but I was just like, I was. I didn't complain at all during the entire game. I didn't even like, I was just like, yep. I was like, I almost, I mean, after you get it like 6 or 7 times in a row, it's just like I was just kind of mathematically working it out. Now,
Mhm.
I felt pretty good because I thought I was going to make it to the end because he actually killed it on the last shot that he ever took against a tank. He didn't even take another shot against the other one. However, he did roll out a double crit one time, which I did roll a block, but then got pierced. So that one double really sped up the calculus a little bit too fast. So I
Yeah.
just didn't have it on turn 6. Um,
But there was a
but yeah,
couple other like really notable, interesting, fun to watch plays. Like so, for example, the whole game was war weary, and he took two fleet troopers, and he was trying to flank you with some fleet troopers. He actually never got to shoot the fleet troopers once before both activations died, and one of them just straight up panicked off the board because it was outside of Leia's range, and you just barraged it. And
yeah,
I think he shot a B1 at it maybe as well. I think it had
yeah.
three suppression and it just panicked off the board.
Yeah, I was waiting for, like, I knew the fleets on deployment were going to be a problem because I he basically said like these are going to be used for late game and I can like kind of
Mm,
block here, and
right?
I was like, okay, I figured, but the thing with them is that their range band being only 2 for the most part, um, actually is not too bad because if he's in range to shoot, unless he's right at the extreme edge of 2, I felt pretty confident about a double move and just get the B1s to just touch them in melee anyway. So
Hmm.
that's why I was always staying at the basically the extreme edge of the backside of my cart and not trying to like get in front or like overextend. Like I didn't need to be there. I
Yeah.
need to be at range 1 of my cart, and then I'm still outside of range 2. So I controlled that range game, and then he was forced to bring them in, and then as soon as he did, I was like, this is my opportunity. I need to, because Leia didn't move, and I was like, war weary. They're only courage 1. I can get 2 off each time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the most devastating, but I was only really looking for the suppression. I ended up killing a few more than I thought I was going to, but it was the suppression that I knew was going to help me in the game there. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you had a lot of other cool stuff I saw you do. Just using your tank base to block in a way where the sniper, after clambering, physically could not reach range 1 of the payload, so you denied it from moving, which
right.
basically like secured the win. That he basically said good game right after that. Like you guys measured it, and he
Yeah,
saw he couldn't get there, and that was the end. But I want to talk about those fleets in his list for a second. I just want to
sure.
jump back to that because I saw people go like har 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 fleets, you know, and I know that fleets in general have been ultra criticized. And I'll take this back. I'll take us back to like episode like 15 or something. I don't remember the exact number, but me and John Griffin were talking about how to play fleets and how to like weave them between buildings and like just set standby traps and wait and like don't throw them away for no reason. And if you figure out how to play them, they're actually super good. I've seen Ryan Slowoski play fleets super effectively with like an officer, but Kingsley's assessment that like they're going to be used for the late game is like the perfect way to think about fleets. Um, you literally just on an objective like bombing run where you know that your opponent's going to have to get to a specific piece of terrain that you can choose. You can just like sit them behind a line of sight blocker and leave them there, and eventually when their army has to come into a space, they wreck. Like they're super strong. So I think the thing is, a lot of people have played fleets and complained about their range 2 band and watched them get shot off the table. But really, like, I think we're finally in a position, objective wise, where if you really think about it, you can really just leverage them for what they're good at, which is setting a standby, getting a free aim, and just waiting behind a building, knowing for objectives like bombing run and payload that you eventually have to come to me. And
Yeah,
I think it's a smart like meta call. And I want to talk about B2s as well, but not yet. I think B2s serve the same purpose, but we'll get to it when we jump into the Gen Con previews because I want to tie that in. So, but
sure.
that's just my thought. I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought
Right.
that was kind of cool to see them. Yeah.
And I won't talk too much more about the games just because I think people can go and check them out there. I think both this game and the other game were both streamed, but I did lose in the top 4, a good opponent. Advanced Positions was the deployment. I didn't really love it, but my table edge, I chose it not having played the table. I liked it for 3 out of 4 of my deployments. Advanced Positions would have been my least favorite choice there, but I lost B1s at too quick of a rate. End of the game, I only had 8 models left for my opponent, but he had the activation number. So good game. I would have liked to have kept Grievous around. He ended up panicking. But before I
Mhm.
get too much more into that, I did want to say one more thing about what you were talking about bombing around a payload. So and I've said this back when we talked about when we first talked about vital assets. And Joe and I spoke after day one, and I was telling him that when I face Kingsley, I said I'm hoping to get payload.
Mhm.
Now that's specifically what I was shooting for. Now here's the reason why. Payload and tanks are fantastic because Joe's pointed out correctly. If you know where your opponent has to go, that helps you out a ton. So
Yeah.
for me, to like when I set up my deployment, I basically mathed out using the base everywhere that I wanted my tanks to be, and I lived around 2 spots. I moved out to my position to shoot, and then I collapsed on where I wanted to be. So his cart
Mhm.
moved twice in the game, and if you look at my positioning on turn 3 when I went to block the cart, I left a little bit of room between myself and the cart, even though I could have shoved up a bit more. And the reason being is if you're real tight against the cart, they can actually angle it and get off to the backside corner of your bases. However, if you leave a little bit of room, there's absolutely no way to move past you. And you'll notice that Kingsley had to divert, and he actually moves it down closer to my mass,
Mhm.
and that actually allowed me to overlap with Grievous to cover. Grievous went into melee, and I left Grievous in melee for the remainder of the game, straddling 2 carts. It was
Mhm.
basically a nigh unkillable unit because he only had 1 tauntaun in against me, and he couldn't overcommit anybody else to
Right.
cover off 2 carts. So basically, a free 1 unit contest on both. And because I had my tank sitting on the other one, and in theory both tanks for a certain point, he had to overcommit 4 units just to move his cart, which he didn't even have at that point. So
Yeah.
there was no way of shoving that cart. And as soon as I locked him into position 2, like range 2, I knew all I had to do is get to position 2 and then keep the killing going. And that's with my tanks in position, not having to ever move for the rest of the game. That's what I look to set up. So that's why I really love payload with the tank. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to get there. If you looked at the math on the start of that game, I think I was 39 inches away from the objective, and he was just over 24, I think, to start.
Mhm.
Not even 24. So I significantly had to go a much further distance, but the distance doesn't really matter if you can't push the cart. And
Same,
so,
yeah, you just needed the tie and the kills. And
yeah,
double AAT definitely kills rebel models like efficient.
yeah,
I
it does.
in the game that you lost, you said there were 7 models on the table.
Yeah, I think he had 7 or 8 models
Yeah,
left at the end of the game.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So, yeah, I think you played it really well. Man, you guys got to watch out for double AAT lists. If people get good with them, they're definitely scary.
I
So,
mean, 55-point commanders and heal bots don't make it any worse. I'm just
it's,
gonna say that
well,
right now.
exactly, exactly. And you know what? I mean, we even saw in the chat. Someone said earlier, if we scroll up, I can't wait to play double saber with a 55-point commander, and I'm with you. I think that list gets even crazier too.
Yeah, is
Uh,
Jeff Rodriguez there?
yeah,
Yeah,
thanks, Jeff. Good call. I agree, man. Double tanks for both factions is nasty.
yeah,
That strafe is just so good. So
right.
I'm into it. And man, we're gonna look at a command card that makes double saber even more nasty too in a bit here.
Right.
So,
Sure. Well, it's a good segue. Why don't we
yeah,
jump over there? So, and you guys can see the list. It's all there. Like I said, the command card is pretty redundant. It's all Grievuses, all generics. I just forgot to put that in there for you guys. So, yeah, this is what we're basically going to talk about. A brief recap of what we saw in the in-flight. I called this in-flight report part 2 because effectively it was like just a more deep dive.
basically what it was like. We could have achieved this exact same thing in the in-flight report if we just showed 2 cards
Yeah.
when we showed the
Yeah.
models. But hey, okay, we got 2 streams. That's
I
fun. We
mean,
got some
yeah.
chat questions answered, right?
Yeah, and Luke was in there, not spoiling but spoiling.
Yeah.
some stuff for us, right? So we learn how many dice Maul throws. I mean, I don't know. I feel pretty good about having potentially dual lightsaber users in your list, and Grievous and Maul both throwing 8 dice. I
Yeah.
mean, that feels like a pretty good 1-2 punch if you were going to pull that off. I mean, with 3 potential 1 pips in your list too. So all that seems really awesome. So yeah, we're just going to continue. We're going to break down. We got a screen for each of these just so we can kind of deal with them in sequence. And I think I have it set up: Anakin, Maul, Separatist, and then
Mhm.
CIS to round this out. So, all right. So
Cool.
why don't you take us away with Anakin here first, Joe?
So we got some juicy details about Anakin now. Well, first of all, I mean, we've talked about how amazing the sculpt looks, and I can't stress that enough. I kind of want to buy two because I love both of the poses and head options. I think that's awesome. But I guess we talked a lot about Anakin and what we saw after the first in-flight report. So maybe let's just show what was new
Sure.
and talk about just the extra stuff we got. First of all,
Command card or upgrade card?
um, let's go command card first. First of all, though, one of the things he said, I think, was he said Anakin was 160 points.
I think I
So,
heard something like that. Yeah.
yeah, so a little bit cheaper than Obi-Wan, but again, maybe not as strong as Obi-Wan at the start of the game, but stronger than Obi-Wan by the end of the game,
Yeah, that was
right?
kind of a cool mechanic. Like
I
as you play cards, he
I
gets
love it.
stronger.
I
Love it.
love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I love it. And the whole concept is like he grows in power over the course of the game. So and I think that basically from what we see here on this command card, I think that's all going to be tied to his command cards. Right? Like
Yeah.
as you play command cards, you get more and more keywords or something. Unless there's something on his actual unit profile, I'm not sure, but like it seems pretty interesting. It's a mechanic in the game that we haven't seen them do before. I think it's super fitting of the character. I mean, if you watch episode 3, Anakin is just like so conflicted and like getting more and more angry, and I mean, I guess throughout the whole Clone Wars arc that's kind of the case. So and they talked about how he's going to be less easy to control. And so maybe there's some like negatives to that, but I
Mhm.
think what's really going to be interesting about him is you might want to like play him timidly in the early game and then just unleash him in the late game and go nuts.
I guess the counterplay to that too, though, is there's a little bit of telegraphing with this particular mechanic as well, right? Because
Mhm.
you may know situations where, okay, well, you're going to want your Anakin to do this in subsequent turns, and I think Luke kind of has alluded to that, right? Like you're playing cards almost to set it for the following turn.
Yeah.
As a player, if you know that, you may want to go all in and either force your opponent to play Anakin cards maybe out of sequence,
Mhm.
or if you wait too long and you end up losing them before you're able to extract the most amount of power or damage or buffs, whatever. We don't know what all the cards do, but there's a potential mechanic there as well. So I also want to say too, we have sort of seen a mechanic like this introduced in the game in a little bit with Enrage, right? So a little bit with
Yeah.
Chewie and a little bit with Bosk, kind of taking that early damage, but then almost like getting a little bit of a buff where they drop that suppression off, and then it's kind of like they get unleashed, right? So I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know how many times I've got to Chewie where it's like, well, he's enraged, well, send him in, or oh, Bosk is almost dead and I can't rely on those regens, so off you go, play that 2 pip so I can get those shots off before you die. And I mean that actually happened in one of my games as well. So
Yeah.
um,
Man,
yeah,
enrage just seems like it would be such an appropriate keyword for Anakin to
for
get at some
sure.
point.
Yeah,
I hate you. You
yeah,
know, like
yeah,
yeah, like
for sure. And
that's awesome.
maybe that'll come. So
Yeah,
yeah, but
we'll
anyways,
see.
take us back to the cards here because we got this new keyword permanent. So what's this
Yeah,
all
I
about?
think did we
Did we
did
see
we
that? Yeah, we did see this. Does Padme have
I think
permanent?
I think Padme has permanent and it's tied to her secret mission card.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. Yeah. So it's fair.
Yeah,
Quite
so
still quite new. So
but it's essentially like you play a command card and the effect of the command card persists for the rest of the game,
yeah. So if you
right?
play this turn
Ma-
one, this is a turn one ability. If you play this turn
Yeah,
four, it's maybe not coming until turn four.
right, but you play a turn one and then Anakin always has exemplar and reliable 2 for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So both of those are awesome keywords right off the bat. I mean, Reliable too. He's going to start every turn with surge tokens, so we're going to make the assumption that he doesn't surge, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
he gets 2 surge tokens and he can share them.
Yeah.
And here's what's crazy, right? I was just thinking in general about how strong Exemplar can be on Anakin. First of all, let's bring this up because this actually just happened over the weekend. I wasn't even aware of it until I was watching the streams, but I guess Exemplar got FAQ'd
It's
to
buffed.
say, yeah, it got buffed like pretty significantly to say that, um, well, it's range 1 to 2 and it's a token sharing mechanic, but essentially it no longer requires line of sight. So
Mm.
clones can share standbys with Padme at range 2 and they don't even like need line of sight of her. Seems a little too good to me.
I mean,
But apparently
if I could
that's the rule.
if I could just
Yeah.
harken back to just drop this in here. So a saber tank could share a standby from Padme
And it
without
doesn't
seeing
even
Padme.
right. And it could be so, but if you think about the implications that this has on Anakin, I mean, it's the same thing. So Anakin can grab any clone tokens
Hmm.
because Exemplar goes both ways. He's also putting 2 more surges into the pool. And then you think about like all the force powers you can take that can get you tokens, or all the like training upgrades you can take on your clones to get tokens, and then Anakin can grab them. So I
Hmm.
think there's going to be a lot of like if Anakin has some sort of mechanic where he's got like deflect or something, or if he like maybe he could just grab dodges from clones. We'll have to see. Or if he like if he doesn't surge, but there's ways to get him 2 or 3 aims. I mean that's pretty awesome. Sharing surges with him. I mean whatever it is, but I mean that keyword's pretty strong. So I
I mean,
could
could
I
you?
could go ahead.
I was just going to point this out. So just thinking in theory, let's just say,
Hmm.
for example, you're using Anakin and Padme,
Yeah.
and you have a saber, and
Yeah.
both have Exemplar, and both can share standbys. You could, in theory, have a single saber shoot standby in a single turn.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking kind of the opposite. I mean, if Anakin gets to attack during his activation and then grabs someone else's standby and attack again,
Padme's.
I, I mean that's so good.
Hmm.
Like he's got a lightsaber. It's obviously going to have like impact and pierce. That's been the precedent set for every lightsaber in the game. I wouldn't
Right.
think his is any different, right? So,
I
okay,
mean, it's like it. I mean,
yeah.
probably Anakin can't get any better. Oh, but wait, he can.
Offensive
And here,
stance, yeah. So
yes,
this one was confusing to some people a little bit because it does say force icon only.
yes,
So this isn't even though it's I think it's technically what a training slot.
right,
It can't go on like core units
right.
or
It doesn't.
like
It can't go the training slot only. I think you have to have the force icon, but it doesn't fill your force slot.
yeah,
It
which is
fills
kind
your.
of weird and confusing when you first see it. But so I think, I mean Grievous could technically not take this, but like who else has a training? Like Operative Luke could take this, right? So
Mhm.
Anakin clearly is going to have a training slot then, right? Because this is coming with him and he's on the art. So that's pretty cool. But that also lends itself to thinking like, well, Anakin could probably take offensive push too and then share that with Exemplar. There's a lot of neat things, but basically it says you're not allowed to take the dodge action, but you can take the when you take the aim action, you get 2 aim tokens. And then it also has you could flip this card over, meaning I'm just going to venture a guess that the opposite is defensive stance, and it's probably the opposite effect, but who knows, right?
I, I mean, it seems bad to have somebody without. I mean, Jedi typically love to have at least that one dodge token.
Yeah,
However, it's quickly made up for. I guess there's the point where this is a little bit of pre-planning. If you're gonna go offensive stance that round and you play Heroes of the Clone War, and then you got that permanent exemplar comes into play, that's where you can start pulling in those dodge tokens from other units. That's where you could potentially have those
exactly.
surges reliable too for defense. So it's
Exactly.
like I'm gonna go all offense, but here's my defense backup. Now, if you play
Yeah.
them in solitude of each other, like don't play them together, obviously you're going to lose that synergistic element. However, seems to me to be a perfect combo where you can. I know I'm in the fray here, so I need to be big swings, but I'm also going to need to back up myself with some defense if he's
Yeah.
actually. I mean, let's assume he's got some force powers and maybe he does a push as well. Sometimes when you push, you could be left out to dry. However, if you got units and they don't even need to be seen at this point, I'll just quickly grab this dodge token off a unit behind a building.
That's the big
Seems
thing
pretty
why
good.
that seems so good on Anakin, because really the card effect is only limited to the aim action, not
Yeah,
spending an aim or taking an
yeah.
aim. Like, so yeah, I mean, you could, I mean, really,
Oh,
you
so
could.
I guess technically you couldn't. I guess you could grab that dodge token. Maybe you can't though, because it does say you can't even spend. So if he has some sort of dodge
Oh,
spend
cannot
convert,
spend
yeah.
dodge tokens. Yeah.
So I guess scratch the dodge just of respect to that. But
Mhm.
the reliable two is nice that you have the two surge, and you can actually still steal sturges from units. So
Yeah.
I believe he's likely has red dice save. We don't know. I don't know if we saw if he converts up or down, but um,
Yeah, I don't think they showed his actual
bottom
profile,
line
but
is he can spend surges to. I don't think there'll be any mechanics that he can't spend surges to switch a defensive role. So
and I think the other thing too is like, maybe the high level huge brain play here is well, can you take two aims, attack someone? You really only need to spend one aim, and then share a standby token, and you have an aim to spend on like that
that's
action.
true. Yeah.
I mean, if you put saber throw on him or something. So yeah,
I mean,
there could be
yeah,
some cool stuff there. You know, I don't
yeah.
think we know enough yet about his profile to see what all those combos are going to be, but I mean, clearly FFG has a plan for this card, so it
I
probably makes
guess
sense.
yeah, and I guess too the timing on this too. If you felt the need to either gobble up dodges or put dodge tokens on him, whatever, it's not until he activates. So it's not like you have to do it at the start. It's not at the start of the turn. So if you feel that you need to take the dodges, obviously you probably aren't going to switch fully into offensive stance. And we don't know what the flip side says, but
Hmm.
seemingly as long as you don't, I guess, flip the card, then you can still spend those dodges freely.
Yeah, for
So it
sure.
is, yeah, it's nice that you don't have to choose when you play the command card. It's not until he activates that you would have to do that. So
Yeah. I hope the you flip this card isn't just like so this effect isn't required. I hope there's like something else on the other side.
I mean, have we seen anything that you flip over that's not dual sided yet? I don't think so.
No,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
not that I know. So I mean, if just going off the like established logic, right? There's
Yeah.
probably I'm just assuming it's the opposite, right? It's
Yeah.
offensive and defensive, but that's what a lot of people are speculating. But we'll have to wait and see for the full
Sure.
reveal.
Right.
Yeah, but I think this comes with Maul because I think you can see it, like you could see the text a little bit on the Maul preview as well. So they'll both have access to this, which makes me think, well, Maul probably has a training slot, right? Just like
Mm,
Anakin.
right.
So yeah,
I mean, Maul with 8 attack dice and 2 aims seems good too.
yeah.
So
Oh,
if he
tenacity.
takes tenacity, nine
Nine
dice
dice.
Maul,
Yeah.
double aimed, yeah,
Right.
that
Right.
also feels good. And maybe you're already in melee, so you just take like a. Oh, I guess you can't. This is when you have to perform one action to get 2 aims, but still 2 for 1 seems very good,
Yeah.
very good. So okay, well speaking of Maul, let's maybe slide over there to him.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit about him. So again, fantastic
Yeah.
sculpts. I guess in this particular case, was there 3 for him?
Yeah. Three.
Slightly disappointed they didn't come with the 4th where he's detached at the waist, but I'm
Hey,
definitely
you've
doing
got an
that.
X-Acto knife.
Yeah, I'm magnetizing him straight at the belt loop there. So
I mean,
yeah,
every time he gets killed in game, you need to just cut him in half and leave him there for a couple minutes and just be like,
for
well,
for sure. I mean,
yeah,
also, so you can detach him to the spider leg version later, so because that's
dude,
coming. But
dude, I'm gonna go on such a just off-topic tangent here, but I
I
came to
love it.
this realization like this week actually for the first time ever in my life, and people might laugh at me because they might have been like, I knew this for the last 10 years, but I was like, Obi-Wan has the high ground against Maul. And then he utilizes that training against Anakin with the high ground. That's the only reason he was able to beat him, because Anakin probably was stronger. And that all clicked to me the other day, and I was like, "Oh my god, Lucas is a genius." Stupid, but anyway, let's talk about Maul, because I love the
Absolutely,
sculpt.
my favorite sculpt of any of the ones that we've seen in this. I'm not sure if this is even called a wave or what it is, but I definitely love it. Cool that he gets some probe droids. Now, here's the thing: we had this conversation last time in the live stream. They call them Viper droids again. So I'm just going to go out on the limb and say, I think that's kind of the generic name applied to them all. Just as
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to say than all the numbers and
yeah,
letters and Roman numerals or whatever you assigned to it there when we talked before. But yeah,
the
but
DRK
yeah,
-1. Yeah,
sure, yeah. But he refers to it as simply Viper droid, and that was the sculptor. And I was like, oh
yeah.
yeah, cool, I like it. But that's cool. Now there's. It sounded to me like, did he say that they were their own activation that
I,
act
I think
like
so.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
so, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure that's what they said though. But they did talk about how they're going to be handing out a new token called observation tokens. Um, a lot of people speculating that this probably means we're getting like the Imperial equivalent of like the probe droid, and they'll probably do the same thing. I think that's like a really like a fair thing to assume, but
yeah,
we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, so
right,
Ken's saying they are their own unit. Yeah, which is
yeah,
cool, right? So they're their own activation, and they have a new token mechanic. So
right,
we'll have to see what that does. That's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Special Force Assembly chat's coming in with the save here. Fantastic. Like I said, I
Yeah.
just quickly scrubbed through the chat or the release. I was just looking for all the new stuff, but I was like had to like keep my phone. I didn't even have my cell signal on the weekend at all, and when I turned it back on, I had like a whole bunch of text messages from work related and various things. But I was like really trying to avoid my phone as much as I could on the weekend there. So, and of course, I was disappointed to miss this when everyone else got it. But
Hmm.
um, okay, go. All right, Ken's coming. So he called it Viper Droid by accident. Uh, but I'm just gonna roll with it and say he made the same mistake I did. So Viper Droid, that's where we're living right now. So,
Fair
but
enough.
we did get something new for this. So let's bring that up because I mean, first off, card name's awesome. Secondly, I got the art here twice, fantastic. Keep
Hmm.
killing it. They keep killing it with the art on these cards, which I think is really cool. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I ever told you this, but local store um, uh, employee of a store that I get some stuff from, he actually has done some of the artwork for X-wing cards, and I think they dual purposed it over to. I think he did Recon Intel, I think, and maybe a couple other ones. So it's just kind of cool local
That's
connection with the
cool.
artwork. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
cool.
that's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, Joel,
Um,
Joel. So.
so yeah, that's actually awesome. Do you know what I think when I see this card? It's called Duel of the Fates. If you want to read it real quick,
Yeah.
I'll get my phone.
So yeah, it's Maul only. It's a one pip or one of his one pips, I should say.
Hmm.
Maul gains one dodge token and disengage.
Hmm.
While Maul is engaged with an enemy unit, that unit cannot spend aim, dodge, standby, or surge tokens. Seems pretty counter to the card we just saw.
True, but
As well,
well, you know what I really think about it. So, I mean, look
so
at the art, right? He's fighting Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
yep,
Super iconic.
yep,
What's Obi-Wan's one pip do? Hello there.
yeah.
It's like
Standby.
Obi-Wan gains an aim, dodge, standby, or surge. Okay,
Yep.
well, this just shuts down the Obi-Wan card. It's like super thematic, right? It's like, nope, I'm going to create the hard counter to Obi-Wan's one pip with Maul's one pip, right? That's
Do
just
you know?
so cool to me. It's so
Do
dark.
you know? Do you know what I like the most?
Hmm.
Because this has been my gaming experience. I'm not sure about you, but every single person who I've ever played, regardless LVO, locally, here in the studio, blah blah blah, everyone always likes to play the and with a like a half smirk, like "Hello there," and plays it
Yeah.
great. And it feels like so like, well, what are you gonna do about this? And I'm just
Yeah.
gonna be like, duel of fates. Here you go. Boom, Trump card. Just gonna slide it
Right,
right
like
over
you
top.
totally telegraphed your hello
Yeah,
there play when you moved
yeah,
Bailey with me, but
yeah,
nope.
yeah. So what your
So
card
good.
now reads is "Sorry, sucker," and then you
Yeah,
just slide it over the top. So
so good, man. I love
it's like
it.
a hard counter. It's the equivalent to playing like a 1 pip against somebody who has cunning. It's like,
Yeah,
sorry, you're not going first.
yeah, yeah. I
Don't
think
even bother
anytime
rolling that dice.
I'm just guessing, anytime a Maul player sits down across the table against an Obi-Wan player, they're just going to be happy.
Hmm.
They're going to be like, all
Yeah.
right, I've got a list that's going to beat your list, right? Like this card is awesome. And
It's
there's a lot of reasons why this is good. I mean, it's not just against Obi-Wan, but I think just clones in general, they want to share those standbys and everything, and it's just like, nope, I'm going to get in melee with you and shut that effect down, and
right.
there's a lot of weird implications there, especially when you're dealing with like really crunchy late game, going for the objective, taking weird standbys in melee just so you can do something type plays, and this just like shuts that down. And I think it's cool. I mean, hey, it's not a bad 1 pip, right? And the thing is, Maul's got two of them, as we saw. We don't know what the other one is yet, but certainly that one's probably one you're going to want to include.
Yeah.
It just,
No, notably on here though, just to caveat this is that you must actually be engaged with the unit to have that effect. So you have disengaged. So
Mhm.
it's not like you can play it, shut Obi down, and then use the disengage keyword to engage somebody else. You would have to stay in base contact with him or
Yeah,
disengage from the current unit and then make base contact with Obi. So
right. So it
it
just
does keep that there.
it seems particularly strong against like any Force user, just in general.
Right.
Is my thought. Yeah, but Obi-Wan being the definite like screw you. So that's
Yeah.
cool. What else did we get? We got another card, right?
I only had that one thing up for him.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
that's all they showed. I think the other discussion was basically just around the coolness of the sculpt and then the probe droids or whatever, the Viper
yeah,
droids.
yeah. Ken's saying here he had to look it up, and it says Imperial probe droids are actually called the Viper probe droid.
Well, there you
Cool.
go.
All right. So in a roundabout way, back to being right,
Yeah.
even though I don't even know what I'm talking about.
So
So
the Imperial probe droids, right? Was
yeah,
that an accidental leak of the Imperial
maybe.
probe? Yeah.
Sounds like it. I mean, hot take. We're confirming it right here. FFG leak. We got it.
Oh,
Vincent's saying absolute speculation, but I wonder if the observation tokens will work like Cad Bane's with Maul being able to appear on them.
mm,
Wow. Use the droids to speed out to onto the field and then deploy Maul in a similar way to Iden.
oh
I
man,
mean,
that'd be
I
really
will
good.
accept it
Yeah.
because I think it would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he's an operative, right? Like infiltrate or some sort of teleport mechanic. I mean, that seems like something an operative would do in this game. That'd be crazy. And I think that sounds like it's even crazier if you take a 55 point commander and Cad Bane. If you got guys bouncing all over the table, I mean, I hope that's what it does. I don't know. That's pretty cool.
I just feel there's so much like I feel like CIS is finally coming into their own in terms of like kind of having that like that and if I can kin it to X-wing real quick, that scum and villainy sort of like plays can just disrupt the cadence of the game. There's
Hmm.
like just things that happen like so that doesn't normally happen or that's out of sequence or I
Right.
was gonna do this but you just hard countered me with this and it's like
Right.
there's nothing I can do about it and it's kind of like an all-in play because it's just small and potentially you lose control of everything else in your force but do you care that turn maybe not
Right.
so I just really like that so
Yeah. For
awesome
sure. And I mean, even though it issues, it's like any other 1 pip in that faction.
it
It
is
it issues orders to just Maul, so you just uplink your B1s or whatever, right?
I
Like you
mean
still have all
there
those tools.
there may be even a better card coming that's like just maybe saves you the price of an uplink for a
Yeah,
turn so
yeah,
okay well do you want to slide over to clone pack then do
of
the
course.
yeah all right
Yep. I mean,
excellent
I mean, first of all, can't stress enough how cool that holocron or whatever, not a holocron, but that com link or whatever
yeah
sculpt is. I mean, so good. And they went into details about like all the modeling options that you're going to get out of this pack, which is
yeah
it's got like the diehards like really excited because if you're like a hobby guy, it's like, oh, put a pauldron on them, take it off, put this other thing. You can have different helmets, different head sculpts, all these little greeblies and stuff that you can model on. And it sounds like there's going to be a lot of small bits, but who cares, because they're going to look amazing when they're all glued on, or you can leave them off however you want to do it.
Yeah,
But I
and
think there's going to be a go ahead,
we've
go ahead.
already all done. We've already all done B1 heads that come in 2 points, or two
Right.
pieces. So it doesn't matter.
If you've ever
Nothing.
bought a Crisis Protocol mini, I think you're used to gluing ultra tiny pieces on. So
Right.
this shouldn't be too challenging if you've been doing it for a bit. I love it. I absolutely love it. When they were going into all the details, they're like, oh yeah, we looked at all this footage of the show, and we gave them this and that. I thought that was so cool for all the hobby guys to just go nuts with. And the cool thing about these sculpts is like you could just use them in your normal phase 1 and phase 2 squads if you just want to make your guys look cooler. It's just more cool ways to have neat looking clones on the table, because really I saw this question come up today. It's like, it's Legion, what you see is what you get, and it's really kind of not. So if you want to just play a phase 1 clone trooper squad with your card at an event, but have a crouching clone, you've now got that option, right? So there's just
Yeah.
more poses and stuff. That's
Right.
cool.
I'm almost thinking that I might want to pick up a couple more, just like another, just maybe one phase 1 box just to have some more heads. 'Cause I don't know if the heads come. I don't know if they said if it comes with phase 1 heads as well.
Yeah, they did actually.
Oh,
So
okay, okay,
they
perfect.
said
Yeah. So
this
it's
pack is going to come with phase 1 and 2 helmets, as well
perfect.
as like the Tamura Morrison head,
Right.
like,
Cool.
with different haircuts and stuff too. So
Well,
it's
fantastic then.
pure customization out of this pack. If you want nothing else besides just models, I mean, it's awesome. But the car, I mean, so many amazing things. They hinted at the fact that the clone medic can shoot, which we kind of like assumed when we saw him
Yeah, but
holding a gun.
on that point, this is I have two questions for you, but let's get into this one since you opened it up. He also mentioned that unlike the medics that we've seen so far, only a single treat coming out of the clone medic.
Okay, I didn't hear that, but that makes so you're trading some abilities to remove wounds for some firepower. I don't
Yes.
hate it. I honestly don't hate it. Because
What's
sometimes
yeah,
all you need to do is revive that Z6 and you're good.
right. I was going to
Right?
ask
Yeah.
chat reaction to that. Do you think that makes the medic so an offensive trade-off for less treat? Do you think that makes the medic more or less valuable? Let us know what you guys think about that. So, um,
It's
which
still a wound.
it totally is. Yeah, no,
Yeah, it's
I
still a
mean,
wound that contributes a die in combat. Like that's kind of cool.
two almost seems too strong when you balance it off with other medics who are only getting one. Like I almost feel
Yeah.
like two. Well, we've talked about this before, right? Like if I can bring, I don't know how many times in my 4 medic double DT list, I brought my Death Troopers back from one squad leader to full health Death Troopers 2 turns in a row. And
Yeah.
there's nothing grosser, to be honest, than that. And
Hmm.
it just felt really strong, obviously to my advantage, so I'm not going to complain about it, but it just makes the medics potentially super strong. So
Oh.
I don't mind the one treat
Mhm.
option. And maybe all medics should have maybe had that. But
And I don't. I mean, I really don't. We're just speculating here, but one of the things that was said really early on, and we talked about this a couple minutes ago when we were talking about Anakin, is that like, well, he costs 160 points, and maybe he doesn't feel like he's worth 160 points at the start of the game, but he seems like he's worth over 200 points by the end of the game. So if Anakin kind of feels like Palpatine, if that's the case, right? If he's that explosive, then like just the ability to preserve 1 or 2 extra wounds on him and keep him alive so he can like make a super powerful play in like turn 5 or 6. I mean, that can really just win you the game.
yeah,
So, I mean, bringing Z6s back is cool, but also like keeping your like powerhouse character that you sunk a bunch of points into alive for an extra turn or two, even Obi-Wan, right?
yeah,
Like that's going to
yeah,
make things really interesting for this faction, I think, and I'm excited to see it.
yeah.
Um, Certainly, we're going to probably see a million different lists being built, and I'm hyped for it.
I
Um,
mean, other ways to repair saber tanks besides R2
totally.
seems okay. Like, I mean,
To-
I love R2's heals, but like you can almost use R2 for like the turn 2-3 heal, and then when R2's kind of got to continue on, if that's not the best way for your saber to play the game, then potentially then you have the backup with the engineers, or I guess the engineers would be the ones healing, but you
right.
still kind of have that mechanic to heal them after R2's gone off, because there is something to be said about like, I mean, uh, R2 in one game I played was like straight up set up for a heal bot. And so, like, when you aren't threatening secret mission, it's almost like you can shift focus on that.
Hmm.
In the game against Kingsley, that wasn't the case. He was definitely going to try to press for the secret mission. I needed to erase R2 early, and that's something that I had to dedicate to. But like if you're able to use R2 for potential heals early game and then skirt off and then maybe hard block with your saber or do something else with your saber, I think there's value there too, especially if you have additional points of heal. So
Yeah. And you know what? So I got to admit, so first of all, I just think this pack in general just makes the Saber more awesome. Like if you're a fan of the Saber, like there's no reason not to go pick up like two of these packs, right?
yeah.
But so I mean 55-point commander just lets you put more cool stuff in your army. But
Hmm.
this is a point that I got to give credit to Dashes for making on stream. And it's something I didn't necessarily think about right away, but it's a great point. What does a 55-point commander do for an army that's like already planning on taking Rex? Well, here's the thing. A lot of people, when they play clones right now, if you look at all these clone lists across the board, are taking one or two naked phase one squads. Well, you got a 55-point model that doesn't lose any value to attrition, probably has like 4 health or five. Maybe it has five. I don't know if they showed it, but it's kind of the same thing as a naked phase one, but probably comes with more keywords because it's an actual like officer.
Hmm.
Right. So maybe and he said like it's still a clone. It's designated as a clone trooper, so it can generate the standbys you're looking for phase ones to generate, or it can generate the aim tokens that you want your phase twos to grab off of it. But
Yeah.
now it's like just coming
Better,
with more keywords potentially.
better
Better.
courage probably as well. So
Yeah, probably courage two at least, right? I would guess. Why not?
easier to
So
hide a single model.
exactly. So like it seems like you're just gonna want one of these. Like you're probably gonna put one of these in like every army that doesn't have two commanders. Like it just
Hmm.
seems like it's been gonna be a staple of the faction. And
Right.
also, I was just thinking about this. You know, the comms tech is a comms tech, right? And you could poo poo on the comms techs all day. Like they're not really that great, whatever, but they kind of are because if you think about it, Captain Rex has the call me captain or the what's the two pip called? His super big play. Take that clankers.
Yeah, take that clankers. Yep.
Right? So the one that like lets you extend your range if you have an aim and a face up.
Hmm.
Well, now all of a sudden you could put HQ uplinks in a couple squads, right? So you can maybe potentially have like 4 or 5 activations with face ups on that turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to invest a lot of points into that gimmick, but if you were already finding a lot of value out of Rex's 2-pip, there's potential to make it even more valuable. And then it's like, I don't remember if it was Echo or Fives. I want to say Echo. Echo dishes off like a face up order to another squad. And then you have the potential to just have like a super controlled turn on like a 2-pip with a bunch of janky plays to be made. So,
I mean, I'm not sure, but potentially you could take electro binoculars as well, and then dish off another aim token to another face up, and now you got another unit that's got extended range. And
I know what that was one of the things some of the like tech we were looking at. Me and Paul Watson were talking about back in the Bark Speeder days before the Saber even came out. But when we saw the Saber, we're like, man, there's ways where it's like if you put like electro binoculars on a squad, you can make that turn better. You know, like and now it's like you think about it with these guys, and it's like there's a lot of ways to buff that card. So I like that
Right.
there's new stuff coming out that's
Mhm.
making old stuff even better.
Yep.
You know,
Well,
that's
speaking of
cool.
new stuff that's making old stuff better, let's talk about the one pip that they did spoil here, synchronized offensive. Um, and I like how they said these new generics that are going to come out are going to be kind of like vehicle centric. I mean, they're singing my song there, right? So,
Yeah.
um, one vehicle, that's it.
Hmm.
Republic only, and then after a friendly vehicle is issued an order, choose a friendly clone trooper unit at range 1 to 2 of it, and issue that unit an order.
Yeah. So
It's like a little
they
bit of a
they
cheap coordinate there.
they basically were like, this is your fire support turn.
Yep.
You issue an order to your tank, and you're going to have a face up order on like whatever other unit that you want, right? So that's you want to set up a big tank fire support play, which certainly we've mathed out is like extremely
Nine,
devastating.
19 dice. Yeah,
Right.
you could
Like, oh,
19 dice with veteran clone pilot.
yeah.
Maybe you got exemplar sitting there. Maybe you got an Anakin that can just give you a couple,
Or a
a
Padme,
couple a
right?
Padme, exactly,
Yeah.
a couple tokens off that. Take your own aim action. You could, in theory, have up to like 3 to 4 aims,
Mhm.
multiple surges on a 19 dice attack to
Yeah.
open up to one pip alpha.
Yeah, and like to take this a step further. So first of all, that's awesome, and the art shows the ATRT. So we've also thought about like, well, fire supporting into an ATRT could be really good too.
15
But
dice surge crit.
yeah, but like the other thing too is like nothing's stopping you from taking a comms tech and having an HQ uplink on this turn. Nothing's stopping you from having like I think it's Echo. I might be misquoting it, but one of the two named ARC troopers that gets you an additional face up, right? So it's like you play this one pip, you issue an order to your saber tank, it bounces to the like let's call it the Echo squad. Echo then bounces it to the phase 2 squad next to him, and you have 3 face ups on a one pip. Right? Like there's so much
Uh,
awesomeness here. And this is a
A-
generic.
Adam's saying here that you HQ uplink on a tank,
Hmm.
then you synchronize a fence that you can get 4 orders out on a one pip.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
So pretty nasty, right? Pretty nasty. So I love it. Great card. Just the start of potentially 2 other amazing cards, and they're generic, so you can put them in any army.
I mean, not that we're one upping people here, but Elijah's coming in with you can get 7 orders on this one pip. Take 2 uplinks on 2 RTs, give out orders to the other RTs,
Yeah.
and then all the
Bounce it.
RTs give
Yeah.
orders to the core units. Yeah, because it doesn't say anything about here. It just says when one
Yeah.
vehicle is issued an order.
Right.
This does issue an order. However,
Right.
HQ uplink does as well. So this reminds me a lot of like what's that 2 pip? The generic 2 pip for the support units gain inspire. What's that one called?
Oh, the rebel one you're talking
Yeah,
about?
it's like
Uh, it's got the art of the. That's like the ATST blowing up on Hoth. I can't
yeah.
remember the name of the
Somebody will
card.
tell us, but that's a very
Yeah.
that's a very prime example there where you could issue out 2 orders to 2 support units. However, if you're playing triple tons, is where I'm getting at.
Mhm.
All 3 of those support units gain inspire too.
Right.
So
So
it specifically says something on the card, but you have to read the text carefully that it does apply to anything that satisfies that condition.
yeah, so it seems like this is going to be a card where that you can totally build a gimmick around.
Yes.
Like you could build a list that's meant to be just devastating on this one pip turn.
Right.
Uplink multiple vehicles and then have your whole army fully controlled and then fire support into everything and just delete.
Yeah.
Rip Palpatine. Let me just say that.
Mm,
I've been
I
saying it for a
mean,
while. It's because of stuff
mm,
like this. All right, fire
I,
support. Come on.
I mean, quite honestly, if you were to fire support into a saber tank that's going to drop armor piercing shells on the same thing,
Hmm.
now you're talking like an impact 5 19 dice attack. I mean, you're potentially going to roll up to mathematically maybe 3 additional crits on that as well. You could have, I mean, if you're over average, you could have 8 to 9 crits coming out. You could, in theory, one shot an AAT.
Yeah, man.
I
Thank
mean, obviously you'd have to roll poorly on the AAT, but I'm just saying that easily.
you.
I mean, you couldn't quite one shot an ATST, but you could do a pretty significant amount of damage there. So
Man, aren't you glad that like FFG gave you a double AAT list and then immediately invalidated it with one command card? But
well,
the good
we
news
haven't got
is,
to the CIS
yeah,
yet.
CIS are getting cool stuff too.
We
So
have not got there yet, but I think it's natural that we slide over there. So
yeah,
bottom line
definitely.
is fantastic. Let's just have a look over here because honestly, we got three cards that we're gonna spoil here. Let's go to the reverse order. Let's jump right in real quick. Like the sculpts, hate the tactical droid. Said that before. Man, did I ever see a wicked meme online where somebody put the tactical droid next to John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever? I think it was with the
Oh, it's
disco
so good. I
pants.
haven't seen that, but that's so
So
accurate.
so good. Yes,
Whoever,
I mean,
whoever
yeah,
created
not a John Travolta fan, but even less of a tactical droid fan. So I'll just say that out here. So we just lost three viewers with that John Travolta
I don't like
slander.
the
So
tactical droid's voice in the Clone Wars for some reason. I don't mind the appearance, but for some reason his voice just like annoys me. But still, man, I'm gonna put a ton of these in lists because 55 points, and I mean it's what people have been asking for, right? I mean we need a cheap commander. We need a cheap commander. You got it. You got your
but
horde now. You can
but here's the thing. Do you feel like it was there was almost like this like bait and switch kind of thing? Like here's a 55-point commander, but if you want to, you can just run Grievous, Dooku, Maul too. So if you want to just invest in a cheap commander, or you can go all in on all the name characters.
yeah.
So
Hey, the prequel trilogy, as I'm calling that list. The
yeah,
prequel villains, right? Grievous, Maul, Dooku. But I'm gonna figure out a way to make that work for sure. But yeah, I mean, tactical droid. What does it do? It takes a double AAT list and it lets you buy heavies on all your B1s, or it takes a double AAT list and it lets you buy a stap or two. You know,
or
it's
heal bots on
or
everybody.
killbots on everything, so your
Yeah,
AATs are truly unkillable, and your squads have extra bodies. Like, it's
yeah.
pretty darn good.
I
You
mean,
know,
I would have loved to have a heal bot in a Kingsley matchup where it's like, here, take a crit wound, and now I'll put it back, and
and
take a crit wound, and now I'll put it back. I mean,
$10,000, and it's gone.
yeah, exactly,
It's like,
exactly. Well,
and it's gone.
let's start here. Let's go reverse.
So
Mechanized incursion here.
I mean, this
One
is
one
built
pip, one vehicle.
built for the stat lists, right? I mean, from the art alone. After a friendly vehicle unit is issued an order, choose a friendly droid trooper unit at range 1 to 2 of it and issue an order to that unit. Sure. Fully controlled army again, right? Why not?
I mean, hey, I mean, honestly, this right here is quite critical, and I'll tell you why. Not because all the shenanigans that you can do if you're running triple staps and and a tank or all that stuff, but that turn, if you like, I only invest in one HQ uplink. I used to do multiple, and I used to like to have it on either end of my droid chain. And to be honest, the two HQ uplinks were fantastic when I was running heavies in my B1s, and I really wanted to get value out of the offense. As soon as I dropped all the heavies, I'm not expecting any offensive output for my B1s ever, and I was really perfectly fine to dedicate one unit to do a move recover, dodge recover, standby recover, shoot recover. I never really needed a second action.
Yeah.
However, there is times when you got to make that double move, or you got to make that that aim shot because you're looking for one more suppression against the unit that you're trying to panic or whatever. There's situations where sometimes you gotta have to just go all in and you don't have the recover. This right here is a potential one pip bailout where you don't lose control because you've made that decision not to recover. But in
Hmm.
fact, you gain one pip and probably gain control on not only the activations, but also on your army. So I love it just for the simple fact that you get a really free HQ uplink coordinate
Yes. And check
for a turn.
check this out. So Staps, right? This is why I think if you go cheap commander, you can make Staps and AATs work really nicely together.
Oh yeah.
Staps have coordinate droid trooper or vehicle.
Hmm.
And then they also have a 2 point upgrade that they can take called the command control array, where it says when you coordinate, you can issue orders at range 1 to 2 instead of 1. So now you can have staps that are kind of out in no man's land, but they're positioned in such a way where You issue the one order to a STAP. It bounces to another STAP, bounces to another STAP, coordinates vehicle, so it bounces to the AAT, and then the AAT issues orders to all your B1s. And you could even end that chain with a B2, right? Like it's all one pip and you have a fully controlled army, and you technically didn't actually even need HQ uplink.
No.
Okay,
and
seems
and
right.
you're going first potentially.
You're going first. All of your AI is not triggering, so you can aim or whatever. It's nasty, man. It's a great card. I'm sure CIS players are going to find tons of ways to use this. Just like you said, you could put uplinks on vehicles, different shenanigans. I think this card is super future proofed if we get new vehicles in the future. Because I think one of the themes of this faction is the control, and we're just getting access to more interesting ways to control our army. So it's cool. I mean, come on, why not? It's awesome. And I was going to say one more thing. If you put link targeting array on all these guys instead, I mean, you could start off with a ton of aims. I mean, aggressive tactics too. Come on, there's cool stuff. I'm excited to see what lists people are going to build.
I mean, Trip Stap's bombing run. I don't even care if they blow up. I'm just dropping that off. Go for a 3-point press, and the rest of the game, all you have to do is prevent your opponent from scoring one of their bombs.
Yeah.
You don't even care if you lose. Whatever you lose, it doesn't even matter. You simply need to stop one bomb or steal one bomb and then run it back to your end zone and just hang out with it. Because the Staps are just going to be quick. They're going to get it off. Not to mention it's devastating when they go off because you can really hit or panic. Or side note, people running bombs. Notice a lot of my opponents in all my games ran bombs, either 1, 2, or all 3 to the edge. I really feel like you need to keep them down the middle if they're not on a vehicle.
Okay.
I run Grievous down the middle with a bomb, and I keep my tanks typically on the edges, just because they're the best things not to drop bombs. Really hard to like one-shot it or
right. And they're also not going to panic off the table or something.
100%. But that's one of the issues is like, and sometimes I'll just drop my bomb off on an edge at other people's. Because you don't want to walk off several units off a table, because bombs are dropping, and if you leave them on the edge and you haven't run anything out to support it, it's really hard to go pick that up and pick it up.
That's great advice. Yeah.
In most of my games, I just had, like I said, one of my games, my opponent had 2 bombs left on my side of the table, nothing over there to pick them up. It's just the nature of it's a risk. That's why bombing run's great for the AATs, and you don't even need to press it. It's just 2 bombs that you know your opponent's not going to steal from you, or make you drop. So, it's cool. It's really cool. But we got way more in this.
There's 2 more. There's 2 more things, right?
Yeah, I got it. Here's one. Let me just hide this card here for a second. There we go. It's the tactical T-Series tactical droid.
So this is, I guess, the option, just like we saw with the first 2 factions, Rebels and Empire. And I'm guessing we're going to get the same kind of card in the clone equivalent. We just haven't seen it yet. But this is like, instead of running the 55-point tactical droid as a commander, this is like if you want to pay points to equip them into like a B1 or B2 squad. So it says droid trooper only, add 1 T-Series tactical droid mini, right? First of all, 1 to 3, a red die, I mean, seems good, especially in a B1 squad that has like an E5C. Why not just throw an extra red in there? But this is what I was really thinking, and so I'll read the rest of the keywords and then I'll talk about it. So you lose AI attack. Great. Okay, permanent loss of AI attack. Don't have to care about issuing this unit specifically in order every turn. That's pretty cool. You gain reliable 1, so you can combine this with your aggressive tactics or your Grievous like command cards that are generating surges, and you're just generating another free surge on the unit that this droid goes in. Right. It's the leader, so it throws a red die in the squad until the squad
not
dies.
Going away.
Yeah. But I think this is what's crazy. I talked earlier when I was speaking about Kingsley's list and how I liked his choice of fleet troopers. I think you could put this guy into a B2 squad and do the same thing. Like you could like hold your back objectives with a B2 squad. They never actually have to be part of your B1 chain because they lose AI attack. So now you can like just hold like a 9 health unit that has blast and a whole bunch of dice with the additional red in the back, and on like a bombing run or a payload. When someone walks into that, it's like walking into a death trap. We know B2s are super super efficient. Their weakness is their range band. Well,
Right.
you don't have to keep them in coordinate range anymore because you don't care. They're probably going to be the only thing in your bag on most turns, so you could pull them when you need them. You could back cap with them, and you can just be like a deletion machine. I think this is going to be certainly worth the points on B2s, and I think there might be some lists that utilize it. Problem with B2s, are a little pricey, and this makes them more pricey, but I think you could build like a pretty beefy squad that might be worth
Right.
taking.
Yeah.
So
Also something to be said too, and apparently my volume's a bit soft, so hopefully it's a bit better for you guys. But it has to be said that adding one red dice with reliable one to a B1 squad, you've actually doubled the attack efficiency with one unit.
yes.
Six white dice without a surge, and then you're adding one red with a surge.
Hmm.
You've increased that efficiency. So I don't know how many times in a game where I'm just simply looking to, if I have a shot, just to put that suppression. There's always that question mark when you throw those six white, whether you have a surge or not, that you're going to even have something come up for paint.
Hmm.
But now with this in here, that just becomes a very reliable unit that does not have to AI attack first either. So if you
Yes.
actually have to maneuver it in to get the shot against the unit you want and not the unit that you're given, that's fantastic to have that for 18 points. In addition to all the other things, situationally,
Totally.
it just opens up a lot more avenues for you.
You know what else I love this in? I love it in a
B2s.
I love it in a B1 poison squad.
Oh, I was gonna say radiation cannon, fantastic. I'm looking to get that
Yeah.
wound through. Now I'm putting a red dice through. That's
So you're
probably going
throwing
to be one
three
more of a cover.
reds. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
you're throwing three reds at range 2 with a
Hmm.
surge, but
Yep.
also you have a range 3 like dice pool. So for
Yes.
that turn where you can't actually quite close into range 2 yet, you can
Yep.
still throw like a respectable dice pool at range 3. Next
Yep.
turn, move into range 2 and take that poison shot.
Right.
It definitely buffs that unit a little bit. Now, again, heavy points investment,
Right.
but now we're talking about 55-point commanders. Now you can put a couple of these in and feel good about it.
Yeah.
You could
Carlos making the same point with the sniper rifle as well. Adding
totally
one more red in. Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose that range band. You're going to have to close down that range band 3, but adding another red dice to any pool is fantastic.
critical one, reliable one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, come on, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it just lets you take those like 8 activation lists to 10 activations and still get stuff like this to fit in there. You know, you
Right.
take a couple of BX sniper strike teams, kind of pad your activations a little bit. You
Yep.
cut this out, and then now you could buy 2 poison squads with this guy in it or whatever, and have some like legitimate side grade interesting choice things there that I think are going to be really cool.
I also feel pretty good about going to 10 activations if you are going to go a maul with a double 1-pip plus your other 1-pip, 3 1-pips, 10 activations, where chances are you're going to be able to first last maul several times in a game. Feels pretty good. So, I mean, maul or similar. I think maul is probably going to be the best example of having the most first last activation control. Just simply because of the 1-pips that he's going to give you one additional 1-pip versus the standard 2 1-pip lists. So yeah, and who knows what Maul's got? Maybe he's got that similar brown card, so maybe he has very similar sort of like buffs or degenerative abilities that are going to be happening through a game.
Yeah,
So
you know what? We didn't talk about that, but they did kind of bring it up. They didn't really spoil any specifics, but they basically said
no,
it's a flaw mechanic, right? It's like
right,
your character in one way or another is flawed, so you're actually giving a buff to your opponent. Like you physically give the card to your opponent and they can play it during the command phase, and it's not necessarily always a command card, but sometimes it is. It's going to depend on what the text on the card actually says. But I think it's going to be kind of weird because in a COVID world, you got to go hand your opponent your own card and they have to touch it. And that's kind of like, I know some people have been like, what's that about? That's kind of a weird choice, but whatever. We won't have.
Sort of a sort of a left field comment here.
Mhm.
I wonder if, given the mechanic, if they are maybe detrimental in a certain way, or maybe the buffs are really strong. I wonder if there's going to be a world where, in the Rebel side of things, if Han coming back in for change of plans doesn't become a little bit of a counter game.
I think so, for
Because
sure.
I really feel that's one of the most disruptive command cards to be played. It
Mhm.
counters even counters cunning, to be perfectly honest, right? So,
Yeah.
and if that change of plans comes in, because Han, I really feel that has great value in his command cards.
That's the
Um,
only value he has, to be
yes,
honest. Yeah.
that's what I
Like,
mean. So
yeah.
if there's a world where Han can exist in Rebel lists, which are already having no trouble getting activation control and high activation counts, if
Mhm.
his command hand doesn't come back in to be just fantastic, because you know, getting that card, or potentially getting it twice if you combine it with other units, to really disrupt. It's like kind of like that game within a game. I always talk about it,
Mhm.
but really like that idea. So maybe an excuse to get Han on the table again.
I
Who
hope
knows?
so. Yeah, I hope so. Cassian's the new hotness, but maybe Han's just a little pricey. But we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the meta could shift drastically when all this new stuff comes out, and like that seems like it's a good counterplay for sure.
that's right. Well, it's our last. This is our last card here for this evening. So
Hmm.
let's talk about this. Like, I mean, I hope you get two copies of this in this one, because otherwise I'm just gonna have to buy several more boxes. But
Nah,
portable
man,
scanner seems good.
you
I
know
mean, who am I
you
kidding?
know
I'm
you're
already
buying
buying several
of
boxes
everything. I mean,
anyways.
come on, you're gonna get
Yeah,
it for all the factions. But
for
no,
sure.
it's funny because I was looking at this and I was like, why would you want to spend an action on a gear slot to give someone else a dodge? But then I was thinking immediately, well, seems really good on B1s that like have nothing better to do besides hide behind a building for 3 turns,
Take
and
cover, dodge.
yeah, well, and they could just feed a dodge token to like Dooku
Hmm.
or Grievous or someone
Yeah.
who wants to like go out and dive, and just feed them dodges, right? Like those Force users love to have dodges. But then also, I was like, well, this is just a generic gear upgrade. So what are some other uses of this? And then um, Paul Watson actually messaged me and was like, well, dude, this is awesome on a generic Rebel officer because you just bought Leia for like 56 points with Take Cover 2. It's also great on Leia because she now has Take Cover 3, right? She could just feed a dodge to Luke or Cassian or K2 or R2 with it's whatever, right? So like this is not a bad upgrade at all. I think it's just one of those things where you got to find the right lists and the right synergies for it. It's not going to be something you're just going to like spam in every army. But certain things really like dodges. So if you could find ways to easily give them more dodges for like it costs an action, but if you have units that like don't care about sacrificing an action, kind of like a B1 behind a wall, then
Well, and
then this is
let me
good.
ask you. Yeah, let me ask you this. So take cover is an action. It's not a dodge action.
Right.
So
You can take two.
you can yeah, so you can take it and take another one. So now, as we talked about before, I want to preserve my B1s. I'm going to sit my B1s in heavy cover. I just need them to babysit an objective. I need them for the late game. So I'm going to sit in heavy cover so I can discount 2 hits coming at me. I'm going to take cover, and then I'm going to take a dodge action.
Yep.
So now you need to have 5 over cover to put shots into my B1s. This costs me the price of an extra B1, but it gives me the price of savings of a B1 every single turn.
Yes.
There's great value in the 6 points.
Exactly. And
Tremendous value.
not to mention you combine that with aggressive tactics and your dice get a little bit better. And now you have two dodges and you're in heavy cover. okay, maybe those like really weak, super squishy V1s are able to just hold out and win you the game in that last turn. When you're,
And if
you
I
know,
guess if it comes down to if you're running B1s, naked B1s, and you're taking the extra body,
hmm
now maybe you're just replacing it with portable scanner because now
yeah,
there's versatility. You can't even see this B1 squad. So what I'm going to do is take cover action and give that to a unit that you can see. I could have a
yes,
unit or two or three sitting completely out of line of sight, each taking this action and giving a unit that is in sight that needs to be for a droid chain or command or whatever. And it could have three, four, upwards of 4 to 5 dodges potentially
yep,
and be in heavy cover. They're going to absorb hits
yeah,
all day. Now you're crit fishing to kill B1s. That doesn't seem efficient.
yep. You can also you can make the same argument for clones with their token sharing. I mean, this could suddenly get crazy. You can make clones like ultra defensive. I
I
mean,
mean,
again,
they needed a buff, especially on defense.
yeah, I mean, typically clones want to aim more often than dodge, although they still do dodge just because a dodge is so much better. It's such a better action on a clone just because you can share it. You know, it's not like directed to a specific squad. So you can get value out of that token where you need it as opposed to like having to pre-plan. But man, like okay, now we have access to just putting more dodges into the pool, and if those units want to just like sit behind line of sight and do nothing anyway,
If I
maybe they take two dodges and with a take cover and a dodge.
If I could
Like
just throw this out too, so, and my apology if you hear baby kind of crying here in the background, but um, if you're talking about clones and you're talking about take cover action, it does say choose a friendly unit at range 1. If I'm not mistaken, saber tanks have outmaneuver.
yes, they do.
So now I'm
Well, don't do yeah, they know they do by default. For some
yeah.
reason I thought it was tied to Plo Koon, but it's not. Yeah, I
So
think they
now
just have
so
it on.
now now I can just dump some dodge tokens on a saber tank.
hmm
Feel really good about preserving those wounds because they're definitely worth more than 6 points apiece.
Yeah,
And that's not from a share mechanic. So I can still use veteran clone pilot to get the offensive shares that I need. I can get the standbys or other offensive off a Padme or an Anakin, and I can have phase 1 units sitting there doing a take cover action to give the dodge and take a standby to feed other units or whatever they're normally doing when they're just token sharing out.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, man. I mean, if you can find ways to feed dodges to Mandos with like nimble and impervious and all their keywords, like that's a cool thing you could do too. Um, I love this upgrade. I think it's good. There's definitely going to be uses for it. Like I saw it at first and I was like, who cares? And then I thought like as we've been talking about it more and more, I'm like, yeah, this is just another nice thing to have to in your arsenal if you need it, you know. So yeah, man, I love it. I love the ways that they're creating ways to vary our lists significantly with these like 3 to 6 point upgrades all day, and creating like interesting choices for gear and training slots, and really making like some difficult choices have to be made, you know. So it's gonna be cool.
Jason just pointing out here in chat, B1's passing an aim to, or sorry, aim and dodge to BX droids with lethal and situational awareness. Yeah, situational awareness is one that we didn't really talk about in combination with this, but you know, OB,
hmm
situational awareness, phase 1's giving them some extra dodge tokens. There's
Yeah,
more and more dodges spent on crits, and like, are we going to get in a world where you're going to need to be rolling like 3 crits over cover to get wounds through? I don't know. I guess more
yeah,
the reason that maybe suppression comes back in to be king, to be perfectly honest.
totally, man. Feeding dodge tokens to Obi-Wan just in general is insane.
Yeah.
Now you could put medics in the list and do the same thing, right? Like, yeah, like there's so when he does occasionally fail a guardian save, you just like clear the wound off him. I think there's going to
Right.
be some crazy stuff. We saw like the hero hammer list, as they're calling it. Like John Griffin ran it at Gen Con. He did pretty well with it. He made day 2. So I mean, just more ways to like make Obi-Wan do what he wants to do, which is like preserve the things around him. I mean, come on.
Mhm.
Seems worth
I
the
mean,
6 points.
I mean, honestly, Grievous is super strong on his one pip because he has a dodge and a surge.
Hmm.
Having multiple turns where Grievous is able to take or just load up with maybe 2 or 3 dodges before he dives in may just make his dives that much more potent and maybe gives him multiple dives because oftentimes what I find is that you have to dive with the one pip and so you don't get to necessarily take full advantage of the disengage.
Hmm.
However, if you can be diving with a one pip ambush or the new vehicle one pip, um, whatever it's called, something excursion or something. Let me pop it back up. What's it called here? Mechanizing incursion.
Hmm.
So if you could dive a Grievous with 2 or 3 dodges on that, and then follow it with the one pip where he gets his own native dodge because he's probably outstretched, but then
Hmm.
gets to like swing and then disengage into another unit. Geez, that feels really good, really
Yeah,
really good. And he only
totally.
really needs 1 or 2 dodges to. I mean, as soon as he clicks in that block and starts activating his own surge defense off each one of those spent dodges,
Hmm.
that's really really good.
It's pretty darn hard to kill.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I
yeah,
honestly, I'm gonna have with all this stuff out here. I think that I'm still gonna have a tough time removing Grievous from my list because I
that's fair.
just yeah, like I don't know if Maul's gonna be a hard replace for him or how that's all gonna work for me, but I think you can still bump the activations up and maybe you drop an AAT and you take triple staffs just to get those activations up because I think you can. I think offensively you can put out quite a bit early game. I mean they don't have the reliability or the longevity, but they may be better in some situations, and you may be able to afford to drop to a single AAT,
Well, I
keep
mean, and
Grievous
just being at 10 activations has its own benefits over like 8 or 9 or
for sure.
even 11
11,
activations.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, right. Just don't throw your bikes away on turn one by going first with them, guys. We've seen it too many times in Friday Night Fights. Don't do it.
Yeah,
Hold,
yep,
issue them orders and hold them back and keep them protected in the early game, right?
yeah.
All right. Well,
It's a thing. So
yeah, for sure. So lots of cool stuff, man. Lots to be excited about. Great stream. I know people are bummed out about the lack of Rebel and Imperial announcements, but they assured us that there's 4 new units coming after we get this stuff. I think they probably just didn't want to show. I actually had a friend message me when I was talking about this, and he was like, "I just think they didn't want to show anything that was farther than 6 months out." And I
right.
think that's a fair assessment. I think by the time this ends, we'll be exactly 6 months out from today when it comes to releases, assuming you get the cadence of like a release every month.
Right. And
So
there's probably a certain level of like unknown at this point too, right? Like they probably had their production ramped up to a certain extent, you know. However, the COVID grind probably really slowed things down. And we may not be fully seeing that yet,
yeah,
but we may see that in the coming months. So that might be
yeah,
part of the reason too, just not to get too far ahead, just
yep,
because you don't want to announce something and then wait a year and a half for it to come out.
right.
Um,
The future's certainly uncertain.
yes.
So
Yeah.
yep,
And you don't want to be, as I always say, consistently inconsistent is not
yep,
something that you want to live by. And we've kind of seen that. And for whatever reason, either distribution or availability or a combination thereof, maybe also just being so popular, that's probably also played into it, especially with some of the newer releases, the B2s, the Phase 2s, that sort of stuff. But a combination of those 3 things could be a recipe for disaster, specifically if you mention things too far out. So
totally.
no,
Yeah.
I mean, I can wait. If I have something to look forward to, I don't need to look forward to everything, you know?
Hey, and
So,
and you know what? I know we don't have a problem with this in our local group. I mean, some people do, but you give us spoiler articles and we can proxy stuff, right? We can
yeah,
still play it, and if we don't have the model, right? Because everything's
yeah,
just on the same size base. So,
yeah.
yep, yeah.
So, I mean, go pick up those AATs. They're probably around there. $70
I think the
models will
stock just
sometimes,
went up on AATs.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I
I
actually
mean,
heard some like so during the stream while you were playing Kingsley, there was one guy in chat who's like, "Well, I just have to go out and buy 2 AATs now."
For
So
sure. I mean,
sold sold
I've been
two
saying it a while.
AATs FFG.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Sean.
I mean, I own three, so just wait till, I mean, when Epic becomes a thing, I'm gonna show you how the triple AAT list is pretty good too.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
With
go
all
get
those
your
new command cards.
yeah, just give my AAT an order, gives an order, full command, full control. That's fine. Um, yeah, I mean, I didn't get a chance to pull all the tricks with the AATs in the tournament. I think that was a combination of me playing Long March, Bombing Run, Minefield. You know, 2 out of 3 games, 3 out of 3 for Long March and Bombing Run. But there's so much more to do. So I do recommend fully take advantage of Strafe. Don't be afraid to point your like, and I think every single person in the tournament commented on this, how strong weak point 2 is in comparison to weak point 1 side. I
Yeah.
never took a single shot, and in fact, in all 30 games that I've played, I've only ever had one shot in the rear arc of that tank, and
Yep.
I gave that to my opponent just simply because I was pressing, you know, to close down our. It was like irrelevant.
You
It
just
wouldn't.
didn't
It was
care.
full health AAT. It didn't matter. But I'm just saying that, and it was to an arc sniper team that was kind of way out on the flank. But
As
um,
critical anyway. Just take the shot. Who cares, right? You're gonna.
exactly. But I just mean that that weak point is so easy to protect, and honestly, you can almost do it off deployment. And if you plan out your moves accordingly, there's nothing that you really have to fear about getting rear shots. So don't let that be the big detriment to not using them. It's probably going to be quite irrelevant in most missions. And if you take the bid, which I talked about, taking a 15-point bid ended up being money. Had the
Yeah.
lead player in every single game. In one game, I actually outbid my opponent because a 14-point bid to my 15.
Nice.
So
Yeah, I know
uh,
at one point you had a 22-point bid,
22, yeah,
and you
and
were
I
like,
dropped to the 16 and then to 15. So
"Yeah, we played a game, and I was like, I think you need the gun. You know, you're winning games
yeah,
without the gun, but I think you'll like having it if you
yeah,
have."
I did like the
Yeah,
gun. Yeah,
yeah.
the gun was good. It did help me in a few situations. I split fire a lot with Grievous,
Hmm.
and some people don't like it, but honestly, I do it because I want to keep my Grievous engaged as much as possible. Um, typically, uh, you might not want to. However, what I feel is that when he stays there and I force my opponent, because I can swing against an opponent that I'm engaged with, weaken them. I don't often use Pierce either if I know I'm going to kill him, and I can shoot another one because I feel that on the subsequent turn, if my opponent chooses to withdraw from my Grievous, I feel like I get 2 activations because I get the activation that you deaded when you moved, and then you free up my Grievous, which in theory should have only been swinging against one opponent. And so
Right.
I really like that play, and I use that one a lot. So it's maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but I just feel like the double lightsaber every single time into like 2 or 3 troopers or 2 or 3 wounds is often overkill and unnecessary. So
That's
yeah,
that's
just
fair.
but I mean, there's 100 ways to play Grievous. That's just my choice to play him like that. So
Hmm.
cool. Well, I think that puts us on the 155 mark here for the episode. It's a good episode. Still a good crowd hanging out. Do appreciate all you guys hanging out with us here this evening. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our ramblings about both Gen Con event and our take on the releases. I know 100 people have done their theories and stuff on them, but we really kind of like to deep dive into how Joe and I are going to put them on the table. And you guys were great in chat with your contributions as well. So
Definitely. Thanks, guys, for the good chat tonight. Yeah, once again, I mean, shout outs to all the patrons. Shout outs to anyone who's donated to the Terrain Studio for Friday Night Fights. Shout outs to everyone who's ordered silhouettes. They're going to be coming in the mail later this week. And if you want to join the Patreon, we opened up all the spots. So there's no more cap on spots anymore for the token
right.
subscription. And we got some deployment markers coming next. So
Yep,
if you want
go
some
check
of
that out.
those, check it out.
Just a shout. Will Matt Kish and I will be on Thursday this week for a hobby stream. We weren't able to go last week because there was no internet here at all. So, yeah, check us out on Thursday. I'll be jumping on there. I'll probably be doing some foam cutting this week, just so I got some projects I
Cool.
want to get set up for. So if you want to check out the Proxon foam cutter, awesome tool. I'm going to be probably using that on stream. And then, of course, we'll be back with Friday Night Fights. No idea who's fighting or what format or what we're doing, but we'll be here. nonetheless. So come check us out on Friday at 7:30 CST time. So
Neat. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you Thursday and Friday.
all right, guys, cheers.